A lot of dealers are primarily put it on the showroom floor, and if it sells, I'll try to retail my way out of it. A lot of dealers, they struggle with the stale units, right?
Yeah.
What is your personal rules for, the wholesale, the retail? When do you have to unload a bike versus, oh, I'm going to keep this in retail because I know it's a gem?
So there are multiple factors that we would look at that. So there would be the price you paid, the condition of the bike, and the desirability of the bike would all take factors in whether I decide to keep it or not. Now let's talk about just general inventory management. Every single night, I look at the bikes. Well, I don't, but our company does. The bikes, every night I have a report that tells me this bike hit 60 days in stock. This bike hit 90 days in stock. This bike hit 120 days in stock. And so every day, what we do, when you have this many bikes, it's really hard to manage in bulk. Sometimes you have to if you get in trouble. You got too much. Now you got an area that you screwed up and you got to clean it up. But all of those factors taken consideration for me.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to this episode of the Dealership Fixit podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Berry. And today I've got Nate Sanel from National Powersports Distributors up in the New England area. And we're going to talk today about inventory management. So, Nate, welcome. We're
Thank
good
you.
friends. We've talked before. You've been on the podcast previously. Let's just kind of kick things off to reacclimate the audience and the listeners. For people who don't know your background, just tell us a little bit about how you got started in the business and kind of what your company looks like today.
Sure. Let's say I started the business in early 2002, right after 9/11, which was actually a motivator for starting this business. But I started in my garage. I put an ad in the newspaper saying that I buy old motorcycles, mopeds, and scooters, and I'll pay cash. And I started driving around, picking up bikes from people and fixing them up in my garage and selling them on eBay. And we did something that most people didn't do back those days. We did like every time I would make a mistake on a bike, I'd sell a bike to somebody far away and they'd discover a problem with it. We started creating condition reports to make sure it never happened again. So what happened over the course of those formative years is we created a system and a process that shared more information about a pre-owned bike than most people could find at any dealership. So even though that they were looking at a bike online, what I was telling them about the motorcycle was considerably more than they could find out even standing next to one in a traditional dealership. So that process of telling people the truth and letting them know everything about what they might be buying was propellant in our rocket ship. And so fast forward, we created some systems. Well, long story short, the business now has grown and we have two locations. We've got one in New Hampshire, one in New York. We have 70 some odd employees, and we're one of the largest pre-owned dealerships in the United States. So
Yes, you are.
it took a lot of steps to get from there to there, but that's where we are now.
Now, I've been to your facility in Pembroke, New Hampshire. Beautiful facility, big giant building, and just a sea of chrome and candy with a lot of customers walking around looking at your bikes. The amount of scale that you've been able to accomplish in a short amount of time is very respectable and hopefully very profitable for you. But I know that there's a lot of steps inside growing that business to that scale. Having inventory be the heartbeat of your business, right? You're always trying to acquire new bikes, access new channels of bikes, really optimize the ones that you do have. What would you say in terms of the inventory management are your core buying philosophies when it comes to buying a used motorcycle? Like what do you say yes to and what do you say no to?
We don't say no to anything. I mean,
Interesting.
so that's one of the philosophies. If you own a dealership and you need a wholesaler, before we were around, wholesaling was never organized. Most dealerships, what they would do if they had a trade that they didn't know about or want, or they had been burned on in the past, they would call whoever their local dealership of that brand was and see what they would pay for. So most sales managers 20 years ago had a list of wholesalers, and they would use multiple wholesalers if they were clever, and if they were good. That's how it was done. Because this guy didn't want this, or this guy didn't have enough money, or this guy took the garbage, and this guy took the CVOs. And we said, we'll take everything. I want to be your partner. And not only will we take everything, we'll tell you before you make the deal what we think it's worth and what the values are. So we'll become your partner. And this was a different mentality. And, I'll give you a little anecdote, a little side story, how we got there. Well, how we got where we are right now, because we do something that traditionally the relationship between a wholesaler and the dealership was tenuous at best.
Yeah.
Because what would happen is the wholesaler would feel like the dealer used him. So this is a typical scenario. The retailer, the dealership calls four or three or four different of his wholesalers, finds out what the best number is. Either he sells it to the best number or he wastes everybody's time and he just uses them like a value guide. So
Right.
he said, all right, these three dealers told me, somewhere between 4 and 4,500. We put 4,250 on it. Now put it on the floor and see what you can get for it. So
Yes.
the wholesaler would come out and be like, what an asshole. Like, I don't work for free. That's the relationship. The relationship is I'll tell you the value and then you let me have the stuff. I helped you make a sale that you might not have, or you might have made a mistake. And for that, I would like the inventory that you don't want. So I used to get really pissed off when I would see a dealer work me and waste my time. And then I'd see the bike on their website. And for a while, I used to fire customers. And I remember this one dealership. It was Manchester Harley-Davidson, prior ownership. So anyone that knows that dealership now, this has nothing to do with them now. Okay. Prior ownership. And I went and I realized that he had done something like 100 quotes with me. And I bought like 2 bikes. Like
Wow.
nothing. Like you're a great customer of ours. No, you're actually not. We're a free employee of yours.
Yeah.
So I called up the owner and I said, I think we're done. And he goes, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, I heard there's a little tiff between our managers. I said, no, 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 there's no tiff between our managers. I told my manager to cut you off. And he goes, well, why did you do that? I said, because you don't sell me anything. He goes, yes, we do. I said, take another look. You don't. You use me. And then he got flustered. And he said, you can't shut me off. And I said, bullshit, I can't shut you off. I don't work for you. I'm not doing any more quotes. Figure it out for yourself.
Yeah.
And he called me back and said, listen, we'll sell you some bikes. I really need you guys. And I all of a sudden said, okay, I got to reassess how this is done. I've got to think, if you're going to build a business that serves somebody, you have to understand what you're serving, right? So we talk about this with retail all the time under being customer service, customer service. Well, I just got thinking, okay, if I want the dealer's business, I have to figure out how to fit into their ecosystem, not shove them into mine.
Right.
So we said, okay, you want to keep them? Keep them. Just keep them. My quote's good for 7 days. If you want to put it on the floor for 30 days, when you want to sell it to me, you go in the system and say, I'd like a requote on this. So I came up with another system that worked for them and worked for me. Now, if I was really selfish, I'd go, well, I'm not losing all those bikes. Those are my bikes. But no, they're not. They're their deals that they're allowing me to help and be part of. So if they keep the bike and sell it, I'm a great partner. And if I get 30% of the bikes, I'm good. And so we took a completely different approach, and we even advertise. Go ahead and use us. We're the best buyer you're ever going to find, and we're free. And in exchange for that, we would like the bikes that you either can't afford, don't have the room for, don't want to keep, whatever. And so that's how it's worked. It's more of trying to figure out a partnership than just being a vendor.
And the vehicle that you're referring to is Bank My Bike, which for anybody listening at home is an online dealer only bid submission technology that you created and have perfected with all the things that you just said about the rebid, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
dealers would sign up for your service. They would put in some information into Bank My Bike, and they would in minutes get a realistic cash offer buy bid. Is that right?
Yeah, we have two things. Like, people can submit an estimate if they don't have all the information about the bike, and we can give them a rough idea. And then when they take it in, they can inspect it and fill out our condition report, and then we can solidify the number. Or they can just fill that report out from the start, and we will give them a buy figure.
Gotcha. So walk us through a typical week with this process, right? You find
From
a
which
lot of,
perspective? From the perspective of buying, or from the perspective of National Powersports retailing these bikes?
well, we're still talking about buying. So
Okay.
is the wholesale Bank My Bike outlet all of your acquisition strategy,
Yeah.
or are you sourcing them from other ways?
I'm absolutely sourcing from other ways. And quite frankly, I'm looking to source less of them through this manner and
Okay.
source more. One of the things that we have not done well, we have a gigantic email list on the retail side. We are
Okay.
not doing customer reach out and follow up to get those bikes back. I mean, it's a huge sin. Anyone that just heard me say that, just slap their head. I get it. I'm slap my own head. But we've been building this wholesale channel, and it is just taken off. So right now we're buying about 65% of our bikes from dealers, and that's too high for me because they're a lower margin retail sale. They generally need more work. There's a reason why that dealer didn't want to keep them. And so it's a harder sale. It's still profitable. It takes more labor hours and things like that. So,
Tell me about trade-ins, private
yeah.
sellers. How else are you sourcing bikes?
So you have four primary ways. You've got your auction you can source from, you've got trade-ins, direct purchase, and dealer buys. Those are our four methods for purchasing. And we track profitability through each one of those channels because I can tell you the difference of the average profitability of the bikes I buy from dealers versus the bikes I take in trade. And anyone listening to this knows they could list out of those four what order would be your most profitable. It's very easy to figure out.
Mhm.
And we're putting too much emphasis on buying through the wholesale channel, which is not your most profitable avenue for retailing. It's not. So
How would you rank service opportunities in that, right? So you can almost talk about that in the same vertical as a trade-in, right? But that's a customer
absolutely.
that maybe visited a dealership service department, not under the guise of I'm going to trade my bike in today. I just want my oil changed.
Yeah.
And then before they know it, when you pick it up, you've got an offer
Buy
to
offer. Yeah.
buy offer or a trade-in offer towards a brand new one. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We would do that and should do that, but we don't do outside service.
Yeah, yeah, you have an incredible service department with many, many techs. I don't know the count off the top of my
Not
head,
enough.
but I mean,
Whatever it is, it's not enough.
you guys are cranking service work, but it's all internal. Is that right?
90%, 95. The only stuff we really do retail is comebacks and issues like that. We turn away, let's put it this way, if I could find another five techs, 10 techs, I could then, put another service manager on, service writer on and focus more on retail. And there's a huge book of business sitting waiting for me there, but you got to focus on your bread and butter. And our bread and butter is buying and selling. And we, just like anybody else, we have some procedural issues that we're working on. We're always working on things. So you get log jams in your process all the
Yeah.
time that move back and forth. And so we're usually dealing with one of those log jams related to seasonality or buying too much or available labor hours for repairing them. We'll get into this, I'm sure, maybe a little bit, but I dropped all of my OEMs and the service opportunities that we purposely don't take are gigantic. My problem is available labor hours. So
Yeah.
what you saw looked to be massive production. I look at it and I say we're failing because I'm getting backed up with bikes and I need to it's very relevant to what I'm going through right now, what you're talking about. Inventory management is like, it's everything.
It's
It's
everything.
everything. I mean, inventory management is also called cash flow. If you can't manage your inventory, your cash flow is screwed. And so you got to see it coming before it's too late. Someone's got to have like a 3 mile high view on this stuff. Especially when you have as many bikes. We have 1,200 motorcycles in stock, all pre-owned. That's a lot to manage.
That's incredible. Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot of capital tied up into each bike. And they all have a expiration date in certain cases, right? So
Yeah.
let's kind of transition to that.
Okay.
A lot of dealers are not as good at the inventory management as good or graded as you may think that you're doing it or not. A lot of dealers are primarily put it on the showroom floor, and if it sells, I'll try to retail my way out of it. A lot of dealers, they struggle with the stale units, right?
Yeah.
What is your personal rules for the wholesale, the retail? When do you have to unload a bike versus, oh, I'm going to keep this in retail because I know it's a gem?
The short answer is every bike stands on its own. So there are multiple factors that we would look at that. So there would be the price you paid, the condition of the bike, and the desirability of the bike would all take factors in whether I decide to keep it or not. Now let's talk about just general inventory management. Every single night, I look at the bikes. Well, I don't, but our company does. The bikes every night I have a report that tells me this bike hit 60 days in stock. This bike hit 90 days in stock. This bike hit 120 days in stock. And so every day, what we do, when you have this many bikes, it's really hard to manage in bulk. Sometimes you have to if you get in trouble. You got too much. Now you got an area that you screwed up and you've got to clean it up. But all of those factors take in consideration for me whether or not we're going to hold on to it for another 30 days. But in general, it's 30-day chunks. It's 60 days at first, and then it's every 30 days. And I'm working on some new internal programs for our software that will allow me to actually flag a certain bike. So let's say I take a bike and I want to do a pricing experiment for 2 weeks, that I can then have that pop back up in my nightly report and say, take a look if we haven't sold it yet. So I have found that as we've grown and grown that I have to manage individually the bikes and we have to manage them every single day.
Absolutely. I want to double click on something that you said there. You said the price you paid, the condition, and the desirability. How do you calculate what the desirability is for a particular year, make, model?
So that we have a couple factors. We have our history, and of course, my buyer also sees what's selling.
Right.
He's involved in that side too. So when we get a quote that comes in, so let's talk a little bit about the software that we built. When
Yep.
a dealer submits a quote to me, I see all kinds of cool shit, like what we built. And as you know, because we integrated with your system, and your system is one of the cool pieces of information that we look at for desirability.
You're
So
referring to
let's say
Moto Hunt, of course.
yeah, you have to make sure you say that. We look at Moto Hunt.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, that's you deserve it. It's fine. It's a
Thank you.
great tool. I
Thank you.
actually wish you weren't advertising it and we could just keep it for ourselves, to be honest with you.
You've said that before, by the way.
I mean it too. I do. But actually, the funny thing about it is this side note, it doesn't matter what tools you have. The person using them doesn't know what the hell to do with them. It doesn't matter.
Of course.
So but when a bike comes in, we can see our history of similar models. So I have some parameters. Like it doesn't just show me exact matches; it shows me similar bikes. And of course, we're looking at the condition because if you have a bike that needs two tires and labor hours, you have to factor that in. Yeah, it's revenue for your service department, but it still takes away from your gross profit on the sale. At least the way we do our accounting. That's just accounting. Desirability moves all the time. And Moto Hunt does tell us basically one of the things for desirability is how many of them are out there in the field, right? So
Yep.
if I'm looking at a yellow FLH something that is, as far as last time I checked, not that desirable.
No, not
And
that
then
color.
I look and I see what's across the country and I find there's 140 of those in dealerships floors, all at 12 grand. I made that price up. I don't know if it's even close, but they're all in that range. Well, I know if I want to retail that out of quick, yeah, I better be at 10.9 or something like that. So we look at that before and if I have 5 of them in stock, then obviously I'm not going to pay the same thing I did 30 days for that bike because it's not moving and I'm sitting on one already. So the price that I give, like I can give the price on a black Sportster today, a 2008 Sportster today, and I can get the exact same bike in 3 weeks from now and give a totally different price because I have 40 of them. Or, you know what I mean? Or I could give a much stronger price because I'm selling it every one I can get, and I don't give a shit how much I pay for that. I'm going to sell that, and I want that bike. So
Yeah.
desirability, how quick can you turn that thing? And
How
desire
much?
in terms of, that factors in, can you get it through your shop and get it on your floor within this hot period?
Yeah, the recon time frame is super important, right? From
Incredibly important.
acquisition to frontline ready retail. Yeah.
Yeah,
How much does
when we look at our numbers, when we look at our turns, we're looking at our turns in a couple different dimensions because we're looking at our turns from when we wrote the check to when we sold it. That's real turns. That's money in, money out.
Yep.
But I also like to look at what's my turns from days marketed because I might have sold a bike in 90 days, but it might have only been available on my website for 15. And I have to factor that in. That's, just saying I had that bike for 60 days or whatever it is not the whole picture. And maybe we had to discount it because the market changed because we couldn't get it through the shop in the right time period. That's why turns are everything because you're buying what you think, what you pay for a bike right now is based on what you can sell it for right now. And if you can't sell it right now, then you have to factor how much does that time change? How much risk does that add to you? Does that add to this purchase?
Absolutely. Now you have a team of buyers. These are all parameters that the technology that you built kind of bakes it in. For the dealer that doesn't have a technology backed by mountains of data from all over the place, Moto Hunt included, how would you say is a good, simple practice or a way that dealers can kind of do this on a spreadsheet or in some type of tracking format? So, in other words, if a dealer is not as advanced as you are and they're wanting to, get into the used bike business more, maybe they haven't been able to buy off the shelf products or tools to help them with this, or they haven't had the time or resources to develop their own thing, technologically speaking. I mean, what's a good way that they can kind of just put some of these parameters that you've built over time into, something that they can simply start today?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, because the answer is the tools I built were the answer to that question because I was finding that I was managing by bulk. We'd get to the point where you're in the middle, up until June, everything you can get your hands on and get through that shop, you'll sell. And then somewhere, at least in here in New England, June, July, right around Bike Week, Father's Day, the tides turn and it drops off like a cliff. And then you're looking at what do I do with all of these units that I bought prior to that at the prior price that I don't have ready yet? So at my level, that can be a lot. It can be two, 300 bikes.
Yeah.
Most dealerships level, if you've got 40 or 50 bikes, honestly, the answer is it doesn't matter what the tools are, just pay attention. Just somebody
Yeah.
needs to look at it every day or once a week or whatever. And my parameters aren't necessarily what yours should be or what any, every dealer's got different parameters. So if it doesn't fit your shop parameters, if you made a mistake, here's the biggest thing what a dealership should do. If they made
Okay.
a mistake and it hasn't sold, get rid of it. Okay, you're not going to retail out of it. You didn't make a home run. You might even have to lose a couple $100. But that money is not being used to buy the bike that you will make money on while it's sitting on your floor not moving. So it's emotionally, especially if you're the buyer, to have to admit essentially you made a mistake by having to wholesale or dump it and not lose money. You have to admit to yourself you failed. You just
Yeah.
failed on that one. It's not so. I have found buyers usually make shitty inventory managers. They really do. They're too attached to it.
They get emotional. Yeah.
They get emotional. Yeah. These are bikes. The buyers get emotional about it. Like, oh, it's got chrome wheels. That thing's a good looking bike. That's going to sell fast. I mean, we get emotional about it. We know why that's desirable.
Absolutely. It's almost like investing in the stock market, right? You'll pick some winners. You'll probably pick some losers. There's some volatility that makes the pricing go up and down, but ultimately your goal from the get-go was to buy low and sell high, and that doesn't always happen. And you have to remain unemotional about it and recoup the capital and move right on to the next one, right?
100%. That is it right there. Like these are groceries that are spoiling on your shelf. That fruit is not going to taste any better a month from now. Like you gotta get rid of it.
Get rid of it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So certainly you've learned a lot. One of the things I always like to ask, high level guys operating at the kind of level that you are, can you share some of the mistakes that you've made along the way? Mostly in regards to managing used inventory, like the theme of today's show. I mean, you've been at this game for a while now. You've seen a lot. You've done a lot. You've tried some things out. Most of it has worked. I think that's why you're successful now, but you certainly have had some failures. Care to share any of your biggest mistakes off the top of your head?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for us, as we've gotten to this level where there are days that there'll be 50 motorcycles coming in for receiving. Like the volume is gigantic. And getting lost in that bulk has been something that we did. We made, like I said to you earlier, like each bike stands alone. Even at this volume, I think we've made a mistake prior a little bit of not treating them that way, of treating it just like every bike is going to make money. But it's not the case. Every single bike you take in needs decisions made. And we have different types of bikes that we market. We have wholesale to the public. We have premium that's serviced and warranted. And we made a mistake this year of making too many bikes premium. And what we did is we threw bad money, we threw good money after bad, as they say. So we put too much into the repairs because we want to be the premium shop for pre-owned. And there was a little bit of a disconnect between my directive and what the buyers were looking for. And we've got two initiatives. We're building Bank My Bike, and we've got over 2,000 dealers on that. We want to service them. So they're our customer. We want to serve them, but we also have to serve retail. And I think what happens is we served our dealers a little bit more importantly than we served our own internal. So right now we're in a space where we bought more than we have labor hours available to service. So we're having to do more wholesale and clean some of this up. And again, we're talking about inventory management, and up to this point, I sound like I know what I'm doing, but we make mistakes. I
Yeah.
mean, one little mistake that doesn't get caught in a month can impact 300-400 bikes. And the mistake of not looking more carefully at each bike and setting a better direction for it when it comes in, we were inefficient in getting these bikes ready. We could have gotten more bikes ready than we did right now. So now we're in a situation where we're actually starting to wholesale some bikes back to the dealers that we've bought from or other dealers. So Bang My Bike is turning from a wholesale that buys bikes into a dealer inventory reallocation channel. So
Ooh.
you can sell me the bikes and I'll quote you the bikes that you don't want. And then maybe I'll have some bikes that are good for you that you do want. So sell me the stuff you don't want and buy from me the stuff you do. And now we're acting almost like an auction, but you don't have to go to the auction because we have a rolling list of bikes that are available all the time that you can cherry pick. You don't have to take a day to go to the auction and hope you get the right bikes. So
And
it's a
because
different system.
And because of your condition report and how meticulous you guys are, and for anybody listening, go to Nate's website, go to National Powersports Distributors, and look at any random bike that they have there. One of their biggest features in that transparency piece that he was talking about is they literally list everything. You got a photo booth taking, multiple, full frame photos, multiple up close photos.
Well,
You go through everything.
yeah, and you want to talk about mistakes we've made. If you go to the website right now, you're going to find hundreds of bikes that don't have that report. We had a mistake that we
Ooh,
made on what we call coming soons or in service, where we didn't get the mechanical condition report, the initial one posted, and we're scrambling a little bit. That's one of our issues right now. But if you take a look at any of our, let's say, premium bikes, so if you go on the website and search for premiums and you look at the condition report and you look at how meticulous we are, it's one of the reasons that we've been successful is because our whole company motto and everything that we do is three words: tell the truth. So if you're not going to go through the bike and you're not going to find out what's wrong with it and tell people what's wrong with it, you're not telling the truth. So we're hesitant to put anything on the website without all the information, but yet we're getting backed up with bikes. So we've put them on the website without as much information, some like coming soons. And it's a terrible situation because customers always, anything that's a coming soon that doesn't have information, and I bet other dealerships run into this on every sale they do online. Everybody expects that bike to be perfect. And if you don't
yep.
tell them why it's not, if they find out after they buy it, that's a terrible experience. It's
Or
terrible.
even during the purchase
Right.
process,
During and that's where
Yeah.
we're at. Someone says, I want to buy that bike. And we go over the condition repair. They go, oh, I didn't know it needed brake pads. I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So it depends. That puts us on our back feet a little bit on our heels. And so that's what we're, to be straight with you and vulnerable and honest. That's where we're at right now. That's where our trouble is. So we're scrambling and we're wholesaling out a bunch of bikes because of just straightening out a little bit of a mess we're in. We have a shit ton of bikes,
Yeah. Well, I
which
think
you got to under realize. So the reason why we have so many bikes is in August last year, I sent all of the OEMs packing. I
right.
sent so I was really worried at that time. My biggest concern was, will we be able to find enough pre-owned bikes to substitute for all those new units that we sold that we won't have anymore? And it's
Yeah.
hundreds of units. So we went all in on buying, marketing to the dealers, putting a rep on the road, like really aggressive. And it worked. It worked really, really well. And now we have the opposite problem. We're buying more bikes than we can get through in timely fashion. So we're creating the wholesale channel to turn those around.
Well, I think it's a brilliant thing. And, just kind of going back and congratulate a little bit on being vulnerable and admitting, hey, we bought too much. And you can see now that that kind of has affected everything down the line, right? You mentioned, hey, we got lost in the bulk, right? We had 50, 60 units show up in one day. That affects your turn times, that affects your recon times, special order parts, the condition reports. I mean, literally, if you don't manage the front end, it's a trickle down negative effect on everything else in the entire process to get that bike, to the retail side of it, right?
Yeah.
So fixing that, I think it's brilliant, turning that
Also,
around and offering that.
I appreciate that. The
Yeah.
marketing side of that too is like coordinating what the direction is for the unit and then making sure it's marketed correctly as well as another area that you can fail and find a disconnect too. That's one thing that I really recommended. That if a shop has a buyer that is putting the number on trade-ins or direct purchases or whatever, that buyer should probably articulate to the sales department what he thought was the end goal for that unit. Sometimes you buy a bike because it's super cheap, even though it needs a ton of work or it's cosmetically terribly rough, but you bought it so right that you enabled the sale. So you took the trade in, you enabled that down payment, and you bought it so right that it doesn't matter. You can sell it for parts, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
You know,
Which you do a lot of. I've seen your accessories and parts and takeoffs area. It's
yeah.
crazy. There's a lot. Okay, let me talk about that marketing piece real quick, just because you brought it up a couple times. On the retail side specifically, you've got all these used bikes, and even for wholesale, it doesn't matter, right? Marketing is marketing. It's
Yeah,
just
right.
who are you talking to? Who's your customer at that point? What kind of strategies are you using, just in a nutshell, to market 1,200 bikes in stock?
Well, each individual bike is the actual advertisement. The way we do it, so the more bikes we have, the more advertising we're doing
Yep.
because it's more units in each unit. So what happens is every unit gets put on basically every sales channel that you can imagine: Cycle Trader, Chopper Exchanges, wherever, except for eBay. We actually pulled off eBay. We're the largest seller in the world of motorcycles on eBay, and we actually pulled out of that.
Interesting. Any particular reason why?
Juice wasn't worth the squeeze.
Okay.
They're
Yeah, they
incredibly
got
outdated.
expensive.
If I told you what we spent a month on eBay, you'd be like, no. And
Wow.
yeah. So, but anyways, so we put all those bikes, our system automatically, when we say it's ready to market, it pushes to our website and it pushes to every other reseller that we do business with. And so
You
the way you do all the internet stuff to get people to get to your bikes, the more models you have available, the more people we can get in front of, because the more people searching for specific models, the more matches we can make. But our website alone has a huge amount of traffic. I mean, a legitimate 10,000 unique visitors a day right now. About, I mean, that's not hits, that's visitors.
visitors, yeah. People.
Yeah. So, and then we have an email list that's huge, huge, a customer list that's gigantic. So we communicate with our customers a little bit through the website. Customers have wish lists they can create on the website.
Okay.
So if we get something in that somebody was looking for, as soon as it becomes visible on the website, they get a notification, hey, this looks like it might match what you're looking for. Like, so we try to handle a lot of the internal marketing to get those bikes sold ourselves. With we built our, as you know, we built our own software. Our website is controlled by our software. It's not, we have complete and total control over that. We can make changes, and it takes all the internal stuff that we do and it creates the listing and posts it externally. So again, it's just advertise it in the most appropriate places. Watch how many days it's on hand. If you got to wholesale it, wholesale it. You know, it's, you don't just wholesale it too. There's why you have to analyze. If you're looking at a bike at 60 days, and you can't just look at this price. You have to look at, how did you market this thing? Did my photographer go rogue and take pictures of every pencil tip chip in the thing and list it as having 75 different flaws? That happens. Sometimes
Mm,
they go a little overboard and made the bike look like a complete piece of crap. And even though it's got a great price and it's unique, it ain't going to sell while it sounds like a piece of crap. So sometimes it's not the pricing. You've got to go back and go, why didn't this sell? And it's almost like you're doing a quote or buying all over again. Where's the market now? How many are on the dealer's floors?
mm.
Did something change? Is there a reason why? Oh, well, I'm $2,000 more than everybody else. I guess I know why it didn't sell. So
Well,
again, individual unit focus on each one.
well, you just answered my next question. I was going to ask you, when a bike isn't selling, what would be your first move? You just listed off a couple, right? But it's really more or less looking at that as an individual unit and like you said, reprice it, re-photograph it, maybe restage it. Is this an undesirable? Does it need to go to wholesale? But what would you say is your main factor of why a bike isn't selling? Maybe the turn or
No, it's
the age
us.
of the unit?
It's our
It's you.
description. Because we give such a comprehensive description and because people are not used to it,
Scares
the
them.
way, the way we describe a bike, our bikes aren't less than any bike you're going to buy at any other dealership. They just don't tell you. So sometimes when a customer looks at like three Sportsters and that one says, it doesn't give any information, but it looks good on competitor one's website. And then
Right.
they go look at something that I've got and it's $500 less, but they read the condition report and we've pointed out truthfully the same flaws that the other one had. It's maddening, but sometimes the the byproduct of telling people the truth is they get fleeced somewhere else because they thought that bike was better condition.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to do business that way. So what I would say to you to answer your question is it needs to be reviewed. There could be a lot of reasons why it hasn't sold. Each bike, just like when you buy it, you have to decide, is this worth holding and repricing? Or did we make a mistake and let's not hold on to a sinking ship. Let's flush it.
Let's flush
And
it.
you can flush it a million ways. Put it down a cost. If you're 2 grand below everybody else in the market and you're honest about why, you might be able to sell it or bring it to the auction. I don't know.
Certainly a lot to look at in terms of all the different data points any one particular bike can give an operator like you to make a decision on, for sure.
Well, the other thing is we have three different types of bikes that we market. We market mechanic specials where we don't go over them, say, come in and look at it. It's got problems.
Yep.
Here's what we know. And then we do what we call blue tags. And blue tags are bikes that we try to make pass inspection. They're good bikes, but they might be older and higher mileage. And then we have our premium bikes, which are lower mileage, better quality bikes that we completely service, go through, make them, pass inspection, and we fix every little thing on. So you might decide to upgrade one of your bikes to get it to sell. You might decide to, this bike doesn't fit our normal parameters, but let's throw a warranty on it because
Yeah.
we know we've been through it. We know it's a good bike. I don't feel there's much of a risk. let's throw a 1 year warranty on it, or let's put something to add some value to try to get it to sell,
Yes,
but
certainly a guarantee is a good push for a customer to say, okay, I'm now over the line now. I'm going to take the next engagement. I'm going to come in. I'm going to submit a lead online. When they see, warranties like that, that's not something that's typical in our space. Why do you think that is? On used bikes, not a whole lot of dealers will offer some type of guarantee or warranty or something that, gives that customer the warm fuzzy of, hey, this is a good quality used bike that you're buying here. So I deal with a lot of dealers in the space, right? And a lot of them are, in the used bike game, either little or a lot. Not many of them will give any type of guarantee on a used bike. It's used, right? If it's got manufacturer warranty left over because it's a year or two old, great, you get that. But we as a dealership make no guarantees on a pre-owned bike. We serviced it and it's mechanically safe to our standards or guides, or maybe even what the state that they're in operates, passing an inspection per se. But once it leaves the lot, it's your problem, right? That's, I think, where a lot of dealers are right now. Why do you think that is, that they wouldn't back that up?
because they're not approaching pre-owned as if it was a important, profitable department of their dealership. That's why. And if you're going to treat pre-owned as those people are less deserving of full transparency and quality, then that's why you're not selling many. Like, so it's a negative loop. Like, we don't sell pre-owned. So, and every time I sell, hear this, and you used to hear it a lot more than now. I do think the tides are changing,
Okay.
but it used to be like, it's taillight warranty, it's pre-owned. And, I used to have, before I was in the business, I've always been into motorcycles. I've gone into shops where they literally like, I'm like, what do you know about this? And that was a big motivator for me. If I tried to buy a bike from a dealership, a pre-owned before, it was always like, I was like, can you tell me anything about it? Just tell me, does it run drive shift? Like, I don't know, it's used. We took it in
Yeah.
last week. That's their marketing. We took it in last week. Like, why don't you just say, we don't want this piece of shit, but we're going to put it in the floor to hope to get somebody. I mean, like, they're not thinking about, like, they treat their parts with more respect, their parts department with more respect. You wouldn't just throw parts into a bin and let people pick from them. You market them, you merchandise it, you price it, you make sure you're competitive. So if you don't put that effort into pre-owned, then you don't do well with pre-owned and you continue to be in this loop. Why would I put a warranty on these pieces of shit? Because you're not thinking about it that way. You know what I mean? And I think, but I do think companies like us, and we aren't the only one, like, our industry knows now. It's not like 20 years ago. Like, pre-owned is really important and it's really profitable done right. So I think a lot more dealerships want to be in the pre-owned game. And if you want to make your customer feel happy, you got to say in some way, shape, or form, you're going to be okay. I'm going to take care of this. If there's a problem within these parameters, I've got your back. Why else would they buy it from a dealer? At that point, just buy it pre-owned. Just go
Yeah.
buy from an individual. That's the only thing a dealership has to promise, is the fact that you have a place to go back to and some sort of recourse or some sort of people to talk to. That's what we want to do better than just buying from an individual. That's the value add. That's why it's more expensive to buy a bike from a dealership than it is to buy just straight from the individual, because they're supposed to protect you from all that.
That's so well
But
said.
in the old days, you don't want, I come across a lot of times as super anti-dealership, and I'm not. And I think the reality behind that is if you have four OEMs, they are up your ass all day long, every day. And your emphasis is on that inventory control, on what inventory you bring in. And I just don't think people have the bandwidth to also do pre-owned the right way. So let's be charitable and say that's a lot of the reason.
With
A lot of
multiple
demands.
multiple OEMs always, like you said, up their ass, take more inventory, take more inventory. Yeah, it's crazy. It's
Yeah,
a juggling act for sure.
I had a very hard time in that world. I'm fiercely independent, and I really hate people telling me what I have to do with my money. I
Yep,
I understand I have to represent their brand, and I've signed up to do so, but there's some point where if it continues to be like, this is not good for me, this is not good for me, then why do it?
exactly. Exactly.
But I was lucky because we started doing pre-owned, and that's always been my emphasis. And I didn't have to do new. And it was actually, and I think this is one of the most important lessons. If I could say anything to any dealership that's broad brush, know what you're good at. And before you fix anything else, lean into that, man. Like, I'm good at pre-owned, so I wanted to not do anything but pre-owned. But if you deliver concierge Harley service, and we have a mutual friend, John Lyon, Wilkins Harley-Davidson. He's the best. They're the best. Their customers just love going there, and they love their customers. And that's what he's leaned into, and he's the best. And that's what he does. That's what he's known. I'm known for pre-owned. And I'm spending all my time working with these 5 OEMs, taking my time away from what I do best. I had to say, okay, we got to stop doing this. And I think that's when we're making money, money hides all sins, right? When things get tight and you got to go, there's a lot to look at here and a lot to fix. The first thing you do is lean into what you're good at, lean into what you know works, and stop wasting your time on the shit that doesn't. It's the 80-20 rule.
Yep, absolutely.
So we leaned into pre-owned pretty hard.
Well, I like that. And usually I end these conversations with, hey, if there was one piece of advice that you can give a dealer to grow their used business, wherever they are in the country, make better buying decisions, use this, use that, look for this, look for that. I mean, you just said it right there, know what you're good at. For the dealers that maybe don't know what they don't know, what's another piece of advice you would give to somebody that's just starting out?
Get outside your comfort zone. Like, if you're not taking pre-owned bikes, if you have an opportunity and a nice one comes across, try it. See if it's profitable. See, I mean, it sounds silly because it's like you can't imagine there's anybody that's not doing any pre-owned. But I would say that if you're doing a perfect example. The store we bought in New York, they sold, I don't know, it was 500 or 600 new units a year, 7 pre-owned units. 7
a year.
A year.
Wow. Yeah. So they weren't even focused on any of that.
And we're going to sell 1,000 pre-owned units out of that store this year. And they sold 7. You get what you pay attention to.
Yes. You reap what you sow.
Yeah. Nobody thought, when I was talking to the people that worked in that dealership before we bought it, and I told them what we were going to do, they're like, we don't sell pre-owned bikes here. You can't fill this place full of pre-owned bikes. We don't sell them. That's not why you don't sell them, Crazy.
Well, everybody, his name is Nate Sanel up in New England there, giving all those dealers a run for their money when it comes to filling the space with quality pre-owned bikes. Check him out. He's at National Powersports Distributors and Bank My Bike. Nate, how can people get a hold of you? LinkedIn, probably the best place?
No, don't get in touch with me. Leave me alone.
He wants to go ride his bicycle and sometimes his motorcycle.
No, LinkedIn is a great way. I've been using LinkedIn a lot for our industry stuff and to look at stuff like that. And it's been a great resource. So LinkedIn is great. And anyone can get a hold of me through the shop. I'm not there every day, but the guys can put me together with people.
Well, I want to say thank you again. Always appreciate the time that I get with you and to discuss, how you've put such a great business together and all of your processes, all your trials and tribulations. And for everybody, thank you for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.
Still guessing what to pay on a used bike? Still holding aged units that just won't move? It's time for a real system. Moto Hunt's ultimate used inventory playbook shows how the best dealers are finding better inventory, pricing trades right, and turning used bikes faster with fewer mistakes and more margin. It's short, real, and free to download right now. Visit dealers.motohunt.com to grab your copy or check for the link in the notes.